Hi Sandra, thanks so much for fitting this chat in. I know you're very busy. It's great to see you. And I know you should probably be hurtling across an ocean right now, but instead, lucky me, you get to talk to me. As you know, this is part of my adventure series where I'm talking to ordinary women who are doing absolutely remarkable things. And you are certainly one of those, I think. I could talk to you for hours. I think we've got lots in common. We've got lots of shared goals. We both like doing bonkers adventures with zero experience and really testing ourselves. But I guess in the context of this interview, I'd love to hear what you've been doing and how you generally make it all work. And I definitely want to talk about underwear.
We will talk about it.
Yes. That sounded a little more pervy than I meant it to. Hopefully we'll explain that to any listeners in case they're like, oh, she didn't come across as a pervert. Anyway, why don't you kick things off by telling us a bit about how you beat 6,000 other applicants, didn't you? To be one of 150 people to go to Antarctica a few years ago.
Yes, I have. Yes. So I have been to Antarctica twice, and I'm planning my third expedition in January 2022. My first two expeditions were slightly different. The first time I went with Robert Swan. He's an OBE. He's the first man who's ever walked to the South, or the first man who's walked to the South Pole and the North Pole in 1986.
Wow.
And the first man, since then, it's been a lot of people. There were a lot of people who walked to the poles, right? But he was the first one to do both. When he went to Antarctica the first time, Jacques Cousteau was his mentor. He got a boat borrowed, which sunk in the bottom of the ocean in Antarctica. So he got stuck, had to be rescued. When him and his team got to the South Pole, to the actual pole, all of them suffered from eye damage. And what they realized later on, and NASA called them and said, did you feel anything that was different from your experience, in London? And they were like, yeah, our eyes are damaged, our skin are peeling. And it wasn't from the cold, it was actually from the exposure to the sun rays, because that's when the same year that NASA said there's a massive ozone, a hole in the ozone layer right above Antarctica. And these guys had gone and were literally burned by the sun rays, not knowing it. And so once that happened, the young Robert Swan decided got really shocked. And he said, well, something is wrong with this planet. Something is wrong with the way that we treat the environment in Antarctica. Is it the same in the North Pole? So you can tell already he's the kind of person who's similar to both of us, who's got these very interesting questions and that leads to greater adventures. So he went to the North Pole, and already back then, he was having a lot of difficulties walking to the North Pole because the ice was melting way too early in the season, and he had many times almost fell into crevices. Wow. It was one of the most dangerous expeditions he's actually ever been into, and that was his first time just to the North Pole. He got shocked, and he said that himself. He said, well, I was an adventurer, but I turned an environmentalist. And actually he said, no, I'm not even an environmentalist. I am just somebody who loves the outdoor and is shocked by the way that we treat our planet. Yeah. So what he's decided to do after that is taking about 150 people, young people, on a yearly basis to Antarctica on a program. Comes with experts, environmental experts, glaciologists, zoologists. You have literally energy experts to do two things. One is to be exposed to Antarctica, and the second is to learn about the environment that we live in. And this is when I joined. So I applied, met him, got inspired. Wow, I want to go there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And when I met him, and this is just the funny story. When I met him, it was at a conference at which I was talking because I used to be a consultant. So I came on stage, did my little speech about consulting and the role of what we call purpose-driven brands, and how brand can change the world for the better by changing the shift from business, and profit to people and planet. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he came right after me and he told this amazing story about his expedition. And I was like, wow. I literally walked down the stage, went to see him straight away across the room, shook his hand, and I said, I'm quitting my job. I want to work for you.
Yes, Sandra, I love it.
He looked at me, he's like, no. He said, young lady, you've got a career, you have power and influence into a world that needs to be changed. So what I offer you is for you to join the expedition with me, learn about it, and then come back and have an impact in the way that's most efficient and effective in Singapore. Because I used to live in Singapore. And I was like, okay, makes sense. That's how I went with him, came back. And then there's the story of me becoming a lobbyist in Singapore to and creating an environmental movement called Up 2 Degrees to change the regulation of public spaces around the air conditioners, which is the number one polluter emission of carbon dioxide in Singapore. So that was the first time. In a nutshell, did that. And then once that was done, I realized through a report that if you start comparing the environmental impact of all of the initiatives that we have in place, education of women and young women particularly are more important. Started talking to UN Women in Asia and then in the UK. And we decided to, with a friend of mine, so I would then go back and take her, and we took 2 other women back down to Antarctica, this time straight in the mountain heritage range to do the first ascent as an all-female team of 2 new peaks that we called Mount Gaia and Mount Malala, and raise awareness and a lot of money for the UN Women for those projects to help women who are in danger of, their livelihood is endangered because of climate change and climate disaster.
How difficult was it to put that expedition together? Was it easy? Was it did you find it easy to get backing? The logistics?
It was really hard. I think, think about your most difficult project at work and then multiply that by 10 at least. It's a lot of details. You have to be extremely organized. Everything needs to be thought through from, in finding the money. I was a young consultant. I had no savings. I was still paying my university debt and loan, so it was like I had no money. So finding the sponsors was like, I sent, honestly, at least 1,000 emails, at least. And I had a couple of answers saying no, at least they were quite decent to say no. But realized to find a few sponsors. And they were the greatest partners I could ever dream of. Ben & Jerry's sponsored me with ice cream. Cool. They couldn't give me cash or gear, so they gave me liters of ice cream, which I would then go, and this is a real story, okay, I've got pictures to prove it. I would go in offices in Singapore, so here's the scene, it's 35 degrees Celsius outside, and so if you want to be able to work, you need a lot of aircon. I would go in offices and do those kind of guerrilla fundraising. I would turn off the aircon in the building for an hour. And after half an hour, people were like hot and sweating and complaining. And why is the building doing something? What's happening? And all these employees really upset. And then I would go around, and I'm not joking, in a penguin suit with a bucket full of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. And I would sell them for $10
like
each.
A savior.
And I got them for free.
Like a really
But that was
mischievous.
like my way to get money.
Yeah. Great, ingenious. I don't know whether to be like scared or in admiration in both. That's awesome. Well done.
Yeah.
Because
there were a lot of hurdles to overcome. I think one of my favorite one was travel insurance. Because when you go on an expedition on your own like that, you've got to think about, okay, if I break my leg or if I fall in the water, or anything, right? Or, something happens to me, who's going to pay for the medical repatriation and fees,
Yeah, and it's the most remote environment in the world, the highest continent in the world. How are you going to even begin to get repatriated?
And so I had this very basic insurance with my Amex corporate card, credit card. I called them up and I said, well, it says that you cover for mountaineering. Is there a limit? And they're like, oh yeah, it's I think it was 5,000 meter high. And then you could do skiing, it was included. So I said, well, look, I'm going to Antarctica. So technically I'm skiing and I'm climbing, but not that high. Would you cover me? And it was a real bugger for them. They had no idea. They didn't know. They couldn't answer. So they're like, well, I guess if you're not going extreme sport, yes. So I was like, right, perfect. I've got my insurance. Let's go.
That's
and
brilliant.
It was just that everything was very scrappy. And then I think one another really an anecdote is learning how to use a shewe for the first time. You know, those little tube that we women have to use in order to mimic the male capability to pee through a zip. I bought 2 types of shewe because I didn't know which one was the right one. I had the soft one. So here, ladies, if you're listening, I would not recommend the silicone soft ones because it's not really practical unless you actually can pull everything down. And then I got the hard one with the tube popping out, the whole kind of machine, right? And then, here I was the week before leaving Singapore in my shower.
Just trying out your... questioning some life decisions.
Exactly.
But did it work? I'm like, I should have got this when I was sailing, because I bought one when I was sailing and then fiddled around with it once, obviously not being as organised as you, and tried to use it whilst the boat was heeled over in extreme environment, and I was like, I'm going to pee on everything, so never bothered.
Yeah, the hard one worked. The soft one was a complete disaster. Complete disaster. I mean, not going to create an image here. The hard one worked really well. And I guess I had the luck to be surrounded by snow. And so in Antarctica, you cannot spread anything. Like, you've got to protect the environment to the point that you have to pee in a bottle and you have to poo in a bag.
Yeah, everything gets taken off.
It's got all the...
Yeah,
everything
no trace.
Back.
Yeah. How much...
Exactly. And so...
There must be quite a lot. Sorry, I'm being really technical now. I'm just thinking about how many days you were there. How much? Because the first time you went, you were on a big expedition ship, weren't you? So I guess
the first time was very different. We were on a ship, and so we left from Ushuaia. We crossed the Drake Passage. For those who don't know, the Drake Passage are the worst seas in the entire planet. It's where the Cape Horn is. All sailors in the world are afraid of the Cape Horn for a good reason. The seas can easily go from 8 meters, 10 meters wave easily, and that's when things are okay. And then you get to the part where you need to watch out for iceberg. But you were still on the boat, and it was an old, an ex-nuclear power Polish boat that was kind of refurnished for expedition, to non-military purposes. So it was not the most comfortable cabin or place to be, but it was warm and dry inside, and so you didn't have to carry your things, and you could you could go to the toilet. The second time I flew in from Chile, and 4 hours later we got to a place called Union Glacier. It was a private camp from which most of the private expeditions leave from, because they have a good logistical base. And it's an old Russian cargo plane that lands on the glacier.
Wow. What was that like?
Sea ice.
That must have been...
completely mental. Yeah. So think about, when you take a plane and you're like in your last little cabin and you think about your luggage. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly that. You go into the luggage section of the plane. So there's there's very little pressure difference. So, so you literally feel the pressure going up. There's no noise cancelling. It's extremely cold, and 10,000 feet is really, really cold. Very noisy. And of course you don't get your drink. Nobody's giving you a drink on the plane.
No.
So
no peanuts.
It was dry.
Yeah.
No peanuts and champagne.
An amazing experience, though. Another geeky question. What are you wearing, on a typical day? Who are you wearing? I don't care about the design. No, is it how many layers are you wearing? Because I know when I was in the Pacific, at one point I wore 3 mid-layer jumpsuits. Not just 1, not just 2. I needed 3, but only 1 pair of socks, which I always found mental. So
yes, it's a very good question. Everybody's different, but there's one rule in Antarctica, which is you want to avoid sweating at all costs, because sweat plus extreme dry cold actually freezes your water inside of your layer. So even if it's not raining or anything, you get wet inside. Mm. If there's a way that it's not fully closed or anything, you get very cold and it freezes down. So the way you dress is always that kind of perfect balance between, you can, do some efforts, mountaineering, hiking. You cordé, in a rope, right? You tie up to 2 people. You are wearing about 1 kilograms of steel on each of your very heavy mountaineering boots. You've got your 15 kg backpack, plus all of, let's say a rope, and all of you're wearing a harness. And so you're carrying perhaps a third of your weight, if not more. And so you need to be not overly covered. So when you're in a effort situation, the bottom I was always wearing underlayer merino, mid layer, and then I had another merino kind of water resistant, not waterproof completely, it had to breathe, and then you put on the kind of super kind of down jacket kind of trousers. Yes. And then when it starts snowing, because it's the equivalent of rain, it will wet your gear, then you put on the waterproof layer on top of it, because your down jacket is not waterproof. No, your down layer is not waterproof. Yeah. Funnily enough, to your point, the socks, super important. I had 1 pair of inner layer merino socks. That was it.
Yeah, that's what I learned by trial and error, because crossing the Southern Ocean I was very, very scared of getting frostbite, because I'd heard that a few other people had it and and so I was wearing 3 pairs of socks and then those hand warmers but designed for your shoes, and I was stressing out about it, and then someone just said just try wearing 1 pair of merino wool liner socks, and it transitioned specific for me, because I didn't need to.
Yeah. I did. It's so I think a lot of people don't know that, and it's a very, very quick fix. So you want to avoid compression, because what happens with compression within the shoe is that if you sweat a little bit, then you have no air. You're not warming up the air. You're just letting the perspiration through, and it wets. It gets the entire environment wet, and therefore becomes cold. So you want a lot of air in between your layers. Therefore, you don't want to stack up too many layers. Yeah. So that's really important. And the good thing about merino is that it absorbs your perspiration and keep you warm in that way. Yeah. I have frost nip on my right toe, though.
Oh, really? Where from? From Antarctica?
Yeah, the second time.
So, because you were climbing for long periods of time, weren't you?
Yeah. And that specific situation, it was the only time I can say with certainty in my life that I have faced my death, pretty much. So we started climbing the west side of a pyramid mountain that is in the mountain range. And everything was fine at first. It was just the 3 of us. The rest of the team was doing another mountain, the one opposite, and we thought it'd be nice to start looking at each other from the summit. But as ours was what we called alpine or mixed climbing, which is that we were doing rock climbing, ice climbing, and snow, powdered snow. Powdered snow is relatively easy. It's just very slow, so you constantly have to make it a bit solidify as you get up. Ice is actually the easiest bit, and then once you get rock or mixed kind of surfaces, it becomes a bit tricky to make sure you get fixed. The problem was, as we got really high, we suddenly realized that the snow quality was decreasing as we were going higher. And so we were really, really slow to make progress. And nobody had ever climbed this mountain. Yeah. So we didn't know which one to go. We were just constantly looking for the best route, right? After, I think, total we spent, from the time we started the climb to the time we got to the other side, we spent 23 hours and 50 minutes nonstop.
Wow.
And yeah. And so the problem with that was we had enough food and everything. That wasn't the problem, but just energy level. And the sun doesn't set in Antarctica during Antarctic, so southern hemisphere summer. It just goes around. So we had a full kind of rotation of the sun in the sky. And then when we got really, really high, we were exhausted. And then a storm started picked up. The wind was so strong, they were pushing us away. And so even when we got to near the ridge, we had to literally drill into the ice in order to stay on the ice and not be pushed away or fly away or fall. And that was the time where it became tricky. We called base camp for help, and because there's no plane, there's no helicopter there, right? You're on your own. This is real, you in the Pacific, the closest people are people in the space station, right?
Yeah, so exactly. And what makes it so desirable as an achievement, but it also really, as you say, it gets very serious very quickly.
Exactly. And I don't think anybody in this planet, apart from people who've gone through this experience, realize what it means to be alone.
No, and it's not
alone.
And it's very different from loneliness, isn't it? Being alone is realizing your size as well. Like, you strike me as someone who's the same as me, as in I want to be overwhelmed by nature. That's why I go into it. I don't want to face death. It's not a sort of adrenaline in that sense, as in I want to kill myself, but it's I want to be humbled by nature and remember that it's in charge, not me, and not us as humanity. So it strikes me that that's the same for you, and you've had two very different Antarctic experiences, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think I guess it's another misconception that people may have about adventurers or explorers or people who cross the Pacific, go sailing, go kayaking, mountaineering, whatever. Everyone I've met in this type of adventures, they are the most risk-averse people in the world.
Yeah.
Because if you want to be successful at adventuring and exploration and extreme sports, you need to survive. And so we all have, and we all share this very strong capability to assess natural risk. And we always take calculated moves. We never go beyond our capabilities. And I think this is a really good skill that you learn when you put yourself out there, as you said, in nature. You're in awe and you realize, I'm nothing. Yeah. I'm so meaningless. I'm like, the ocean can sink my boat in a second. The snow and the wind can take me away. It's over. And I think that gives you that level of humbleness towards nature. And that's when the respect kicks back in.
Exactly.
And this is my wish. I wish more people could have the opportunity to get back out there and see it for themselves. They don't have to go to Antarctica or, cross an ocean. But, go even just camping. Try to make a fire, like for one night. Or, sleep on the beach directly there. And you're surrounded by weird noises and insects and the sea. And just do that. And you realize that, there's a lot of respect to have for nature and our environment and the planet.
Exactly. Yeah. I completely agree. And it's the same, it's push through your limits, as you say, like go outside for 10 minutes. Sleep outside in your own garden for one night to see, and then once you push through one limit, you realise, I'm okay with this. I'm going to try this and this and this, and then it's brilliant. I wanted to ask you as well, other than about shewees and underwear and stuff like this, is that what continues to drive you? Because I watched a really good video you did called In Cold Truth, and you open it and you're suffering from withdrawals from leaving Antarctica, and you are very emotional, and it made me quite emotional. And I thought, did you have that again when you went back to Antarctica? Was it completely different?
That's a good question.
Because the first time, presumably, you were overwhelmed just by being there, being exposed to the wildlife, having that raw, wonderful experience. But the second time, you'd gone there with so much to achieve.
Yes. I think, to be honest with you, the second time I was as overwhelmed as the first time. And because there's just the inherent danger of being in Antarctica, because it's not a place for humans, right? Like, you can't get out, you can't be outside in Antarctica without a pair of sunglasses, otherwise you burn the back of your eye. You can't spend too much time peeing or pooing. We're back at this topic, I know. Otherwise it freezes your heart. And you're like, okay, you can be dehydrated very quickly. It's the driest desert on the planet, even though it's just snow and ice. So it's not a place made for human. It is a place that we shouldn't dwell too much on or do anything there, right? But the second time I went, I was as overwhelmed. And it's kind of funny because I think of myself as complete badass, I'm like, I can handle a lot of situation, and I can. But you put me back in there in Antarctica, and I'm like, oh my god, the heart goes beating very fast. Everything is just so hard. So it's because you're in survival mode the entire time. I think, to your point, what drives me though, the second time I went, we had a mission, and we wanted to make a point, and we wanted to climb a mountain. And I couldn't come back and fail. I had to do it because there was a much bigger purpose than just my self-discovery and, exploration of Antarctica. And when we got to the base camp, we looked at because we were trying to find our mountains to climb, right? So we were 4 women plus 2 female guides to come along with us. And we were like, okay, which mountain do we climb as a first ascent? And the way to do it, there's no map. You can't buy a map of Antarctica. So there's no topography. So you have to take 2 satellite imageries and superimpose them.
Wow.
And then there's a registry there. And it's also available online of all the routes that were done by looking just at GPS coordinate and be like, oh, this one has been done by this person then, and this person then. So it's very it pretty was like that when, continents were, discovered in the 18th century or something. And so that's how you do it. And then it became an interesting process, which till today pisses me off. The leader of the base camp was a man. And to be fair, when we arrived there, they were men everywhere, apart from another 2 women, a daughter and her mom climbing Vincent. And they were like, oh, you can climb this mountain. It's a beautiful mountain. It's great. And you know what? No woman has ever done it before. And we're like, yeah, but it's been climbed. Yeah, but not by women and not by only women. And we're like, that's not the point. That's not the point we're making here. What the point we want to make is we want a woman to be the first to do an ascent of a summit. It's very simple. It's like we don't need to be the second after the men again. And they could not understand that. And so it took us a really good half day to go through all the summits to find, some really interesting ones with a very interesting route to get up that were quite high enough for us to be like, this is it's not just a little hill, it's a summit. And so that's what we did. But it was really hard for the men to understand that we wanted to make that point, because for them it wasn't a problem, it wasn't an issue. But yeah, we did. We found our mountains and we did climb. And no man had ever stepped on those mountains before, which at the time felt really satisfying.
Must feel satisfying now. I feel satisfied and I'm on my sofa. Yes, thanks, Sandra.
Yeah, we were up there, we're like, this place has been walked on just by women. Yeah.
Fantastic. Whilst you have to loosen your harness to take a pee.
Yeah, that's the thing that now drives me mad. I mean, and now I'm listening to myself and I feel like, oh my God, this woman is angry. So
no, I like it. You should be.
I'm quietly angry. I'm trying to drive change in this because, and rightly so, it shouldn't be the case. So this is what happened. During that 24-hour climb, of course, we need to pee. In order to pee, you've got to put your, crampon against the slope. You put your knees in it, you get your shewees, you got your backpack, and you're literally onto I'd say it was pretty steep slope. So, I don't know, maybe 40, 30 degree slope. It was really steep. It's a really, really steep one. Anyway, so we all lined up together, 3 women, and then we tried to pee. So remember, I'm wearing my underwear, so my panty. I'm wearing my inner layer, my mid layer, my down, and it wasn't snowing, so I just had my top down. So I had literally 4 layers to cross in order to access the exit, right? And so what I did was try to open. So I was wearing a harness, and so the harness goes around your waist and around your thighs, right? But I was trying to open the buttons of my down trousers and then pull down my layers underneath it in order to literally insert the shewee. Couldn't go anywhere. It wasn't going down at all. And so I tried to pull more, but because it was so tight around the waist, rightly so, because it's supposed to be tight to preserve you from killing yourself, I had to, and this is not a joke, we all had to do it, to release the buckle of our harness to the maximum opening. So it was still on, but it was the maximum, opening and looseness of the harness in order for us to be able to pull down our trousers as much as possible so we could then push down and the shewee in order to pee. So by that time, you literally need to pee. You are in distress, you are excessively cold, and you're just afraid that if you sleep because you're trying to pee, because you're a woman, you will die.
Yeah, which is unconscionable. Like, why is that the case? Why do men just need to unzip and not expose half their body to go to the loo? Whereas, why is better clothing being designed?
And the solution to this problem is super simple. The zip that you have on the men down trousers or inner layers, put it on the woman, or even put it on all of them, all the way underneath it.
Yeah.
That's it. I just need it perhaps a couple of inches longer.
So
that's all we need.
Are you going to design it, Sandra?
Exactly. So what happened is, after that, there were so many little things, but that what for me was a trigger. Things like women's hands are different from men's hands overall, but the gloves are unisex, and they're often designed on the biggest hands, right? So that it fits everybody else. Mm-hmm. So we had our female guide. She's one of the best coldest region, mountaineering guide in the world. You know what she had to do on her very fancy and expensive gloves, which I won't tell the brand? She had to cut, and then she would duct tape the end of it.
Mad.
Where's the point of buying all this Gore-Tex and waterproof whatever thing if you're going to cut it and put duct tape on the tip of it, so that she could have gloves to her size that were the right thickness? There's a problem. Then things like even the mountaineering shoes, all of the brands, the Italian brands are the best ones. They're all men's size, and so they have to go like XXXS, very small sizes in order to get ones for women. And I'm like, my feet is different. My feet is different from a man's feet. And all women have pain in it, and it's not normal. Yeah. And everything is the same. Like even the inner layers, like they don't feature, like we've got boobs for Christ's sake. It's like, breathe. The trousers, like, as women, like when you go into any sort of physical exercises, you can't have something that is non-flexible, non-stretchable, because you're going to start being bloated. You're going to, get swollen. Like your body moves, right?
Yeah.
You're on your period. Hello, like you're a lot bigger.
Yeah.
It doesn't cater for that need, and none of the trousers of the very massive mass brands, none of them cater for that.
That's not
and so there's a lot of, I think, delay for the gear and the kit brands equipment brands to really cater to women's need. And when we provide that feedback to some of them, they came back to us and said, it's too niche. And I'm like, really?
Really?
Half of the population is too niche, honey? Come on, give me a break. And there was a reply. It's like, there's not enough women doing adventuring at that level to justify doing a collection with a zip that will go underneath it. And I'm like,
what?
Okay, I get your business point of view. I get it. But at some point, we need to start somewhere. It's like the chicken and egg,
Yeah.
If Lululemon had not started yoga pants, we would still wearing those puffy pants to do our yoga. It's not going to work, right? So, yeah. So I think one of the things that brands... Huh?
I was just saying it's very frustrating because you have to start from a point of already being disadvantaged by your kit, which is like, why? And still you manage to achieve that. It's remarkable.
So and the next expedition to Antarctica, I'm going this time with Rob Swan again, and it's going to be us skiing to the pole for 60 miles. We call it the last degree. And I've asked him to have as many female as possible in the team, but also to have men. And the idea is to document and compare the experiences of us doing exactly the same experience, right? Mm-hmm. But from a male perspective and a female perspective across all aspects, and kit is one of them.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I'm very much available. So just if you need anyone else, I'm here. I'm willing to expose my underwear and try out all manner of shewees to go to Antarctica. No, but seriously. It's really, really interesting. You have so many good points. I've got to ask as well, I guess. It feels a boring question for me because I would make anything work just to feel that thrill or excitement of being curious and making your life work. But there'll be people listening to this saying, well, how on earth does she do this and have a job?
Oh, yeah. So, by the way, I have a job.
Yeah.
So this is, so, where most people would say, I've got 2 weeks during summer, I'm going to go to the beach, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I've got 2 weeks during summer. Which mountain am I going to climb? And yes, I come back from my holidays more tired than I left, but it's a good fatigue. It has nothing to do with that fatigue that we feel at work. So the way I handle it, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm literally nobody in the athletic world. Like I am just somebody who has a job, and every time I have, let's say a bonus or a pay raise, I save it and then I spend it.
Yeah.
And so I guess, this is something I had a lot of questions from a lot of women around this. Like, look, I have a job. I have 2 kids. I have the parents to take care of. Like, I can't go away. And every woman who has said that to me, we've literally managed to take them out for like a 3-day expedition somewhere, or a week somewhere, because there's always a way to go away. And, one thing I've noticed amongst women, and that is really a true pleasure for me to watch, is the empowerment and potential of going out there in the nature. And I see a lot of my friends, and just also like any woman, random women who come to me and say, I'd love to climb that mountain. Like, you can. I promise you, if you prepare, you can. And they can. They do it.
Yeah.
The moment they decide to do it, it's just it's a choice. I'm gonna, save 3 days of my time this year to go and climb Kota Kinabalu in Indonesia.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost much money. And you know what it does to your life? It drives you. Exactly. And so
it's
you have to get physically fit. Yeah, you anticipate. You need to get fit mentally, physically. You need to learn about kit. You need to learn about hiking. You need to learn about mountains and volcanoes. And so you grow. And then once you've done it, I'm like, you've got a woman who's just climbed that mountain coming down, and like somebody's going to have a go at her. How do you think she's going to reply? She's going to be, excuse me, no thank you. Like, she is empowered. She's the real badass. And I think we need more of those women like that. So any woman who thinks they can't do it, call me, let's go. Because not true. Yeah. And I do it. Now, the truth is, I'm not a superwoman either, right? Like, I don't have children. I don't have a pension fund. I don't have any properties. I have very little savings. And my personal life has been a little complicated, but that was not the reason why, I think. So just so we're clear. Yeah. So not superwoman, but still making it happen.
Yeah, you're making it work and doing what you can with what you have, which I think is the important thing. And
one last thing, I think it's interesting, because I think it's fair to say that I just started the job 4 days ago, and my interviews, half of the time was literally spent on my expedition and what I've done and what I've learned. And, going out there is as much of a life experience as it is then to sit in front of a computer at a desk for 8 hours a day. And I would almost, say that recruiters and companies more and more want people who've been outside and done something else, because it brings a really richness and diversity into their workforce. And it just, ultimately, they know it makes you a better person to work with, whatever happened, right? And so those who think that it's detrimental to their career because they have a job, I would tend to disagree, actually. The more I do these, experiences, the more I become successful in my career.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. So inspiring. I just want to break open the door and run outside now.
Just go.
Just leave the interview, just run off. Now I should ask you your 10 questions, shouldn't I?
Oh.
As my only French guest, you're probably au fait with Proust, aren't you?
Proust, bien sûr, bien sûr.
Bien sûr. So I can't ask you in French, sorry. But
no, that's fine.
I'm going to ask you. So, number 1, Sandra, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
What is my idea of perfect happiness?
Doesn't have to be a perfect answer, just anything that pops into your head.
Okay. This is really hard. Freedom. So freedom of... My idea of perfect happiness is freedom of movement, being able to go anywhere, discover everything I want, and yet be able to go back to my loved ones at the end of the day, because it's really all that matters.
Yeah, I love it. Number 2, what is your greatest fear?
Okay, don't don't mock me, don't judge me. I am afraid, like crazy afraid of deep, dark water. I've crossed oceans, but I cannot swim in them.
No, but actually, I'm completely with you. I'm not scared of big, deep, dark. I actually am fine getting into water where I have no idea what's beneath me or the bottom. What I'm slightly scared of, which I'm just not sure why I'm admitting now, is big waves. Just going out into the sea on a regular beach. If the waves are slightly too big, I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. I think they'll just take me out. I don't know why. Whereas I've seen 17-metre waves.
Across the world and you're afraid of waves.
Phenomenal sea state. We've seen conditions, that weekend sailors will never see, and yet I'm slightly scared to go for swims now and again. But so, yeah, it's different for everyone.
Okay, I feel better about myself now. Thank you.
I think yours is slightly more logical. Is it the animals? Is it the fear of something like grabbing you?
Yes, it's something will grab me and suck me down into the deep end of that water.
Yeah.
Can't handle it.
Okay.
So I just came back from a week of kite surfing. I literally couldn't be in the water without the board, which I think helped me in progressing really fast.
Fear drove you. I love it. Question number 3. What is the trait you most deplore in yourself? So what do you like least in yourself?
Well, I think it's the other side of a good trait, which is I am very organized, but I can be overly controlling. And even I hate it. Like sometimes I'd be like, but why are you doing it this way? Do it that way and do that and do this. And I'm like, oh, shut up, Sandra. I
could do with being
a little bit more. The reason why I think I'm the team coordinator on my boat, but yeah.
I know, they're great. You need someone that's organised, and I am not that person. I will get stuff done anytime, any conditions, anytime, but organising it, nah, can't do it. So that leads me on to the next question. What is the trait that you most deplore in others? Maybe disorganisation?
No. I hate people who lie or dishonest or hypocrite.
Yeah.
Just cannot handle it. We'll walk away. We'll literally walk away and take them away from my life.
Smart. Okay, number 5. On what occasion do you lie?
I lie to my mom.
Oh.
A lot, actually. Yes. And most of the time it is when she asks, are you okay? And I would reply, I'm fine. Yeah. That is a big lie.
Fine often means I'm screaming inside, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And for everything. Work, are you doing okay at work? I'm fine. Really, I'm not. How's your relationship going? I'm fine. It's falling apart. I'm in Antarctica. I call her, are you okay? I'm fine. Yeah, I can't feel my toe, but I'm okay, Or like, I'm on the boat, I broke my hand. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I just broke my hand, but I'm fine. Yeah, really, I'm not. Yeah. Trying to preserve her. I don't know if it works.
It's kindness. Lies through kindness, maybe.
Yeah.
Number 6. What do you consider your greatest achievement? There's been a few. So.
Yeah. I think if I'm lucky enough to have done quite a few crazy things, so we've gone to Antarctica twice and climbed mountains. Climbed a lot of mountains, did a lot of mountaineering, sailing halfway around the world. Like I've done quite a few things, but I am, and it's perhaps because of that, I am the proudest of my relationship with my parents and my family. And I think being able to elevate that and be kind and be present and try to do my best and put them as a priority every time. Because at the end of the day, when you're in the middle of Antarctica and you're in your tent and you're freezing cold and, you're changing the world, but really all you think about is your parents, your brother, sister, boyfriend, husband, spouse, grandparents, and your friends, your close friends.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters, really. And so now I spend a lot more time, at least I try. I think I'm not really good at it, but I try really hard to be here for people.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think you're absolutely right, and it's a common thread in everyone I've spoken to. They never say the Marathon des Sables or the one event that they've done that they're famous for, but actually their greatest achievements are always something really personal within themselves, and it's often a relationship, which is wonderful. So number 7, what is your motto? Do you have like a motto or a mantra?
I have a lot. I have a lot. There's one I like because it's a really funny story. When I was young and the first time I went onto roller skating, I was really afraid of falling.
Okay.
And for good reasons. I keep breaking my bones. But at the time, my mom said to me something in French, if this is appropriate. In French, she said, "La peur n'évite pas le danger." And what that means is that feeling fear does not remove the danger. Or in another word, it's not because you're afraid that it will take away the risk. And I really like that. At first, I really did not understand it. All she was saying is, have courage, go for it. And now I understand it. Every time you do something, as a human, your basic reply or response would be fight or flight, and the fear will come in to protect you. But we don't really need to be protecting from, roller skating and a lot of things that we do in our lives anymore, and yet we still feel that fear, and it's preventing a lot of people from doing incredible stuff. And so I think for me it's saying, okay, I'm going to do something crazy, what are the risks and how do I tackle them? But I don't feel that fear anymore, or turning on its head to be like a bit driving force. So that was for me one of the big things whenever I go crazy. The other thing I believe in are and it's going to sound pretty grim, but what if I die tomorrow? Like, have I had the life I wanted to have? Would have been look back at myself and be like, good job. And so I think every day when I go to bed, I think about the all things I'm grateful for. And whenever I have to make a decision, like, should I really book this helicopter to go see this volcano? I have no money. And then you're like, yes, let's do it. I'll find money somewhere else and I'll work harder, and that's fine. So I tend to think like that a lot.
It's good. The best way to think, the only way to think if you want to be a healthy, happy human.
Yeah.
Number 8, what is your greatest regret?
I don't have any.
This is what I try to be Edith Piaf with, like, je ne regrette rien. That's what
Rien du tout. Je ne regrette rien du tout. Rien.
Quite
no,
right.
Absolutely. I don't, and you know what? It's kind of crazy. Like, there are probably many decisions I've made that, in hindsight, were really, really, really wrong. But what's the point of me thinking about it now and feeling bad about it? Nothing. There's no point at all.
Nope.
It's not useful and helpful to me. If I made a mistake and I need to amend it, then I'm going to admit it and work forward from it. I'm going to do something about it now. But I'm not going to regret it. There's no point.
Nope. I agree. Number 9, which historical figure do you most identify with?
Historical figure. It's complicated. A lot of the women I admire and get inspired by are very modern, because I just like the idea of being able to follow them and get inspired. There was this one woman, Jeanne Barré. Jeanne Barré. So Jeanne Barré, I think she lived in the 18th century. And she was, in hindsight, they discovered that later, she was the first woman to sail around the world. And she had to do it disguised as a man. Wow. That's why they learned later on that she was actually a woman. But she couldn't do it because at the time they would not allow women to go on expedition and on a boat. Mm. We are very scary individuals, so it's...
I know, monsters.
Yes.
She sounds amazing. I'm going to go and look her up immediately. Number 10. I always have to ask this question. I always feel bad, but it's always really interesting. Is how would you like to die?
Oh, I want to die doing exactly what I'm doing. As in, like, on an adventure, in the middle of outside, doing something absolutely crazy, and I want to die of a sudden and pain-free death. That's it. And I will not regret it. And everybody who knows me will know that it was a good death because I was literally in the middle of something I'm doing and I enjoy.
Yeah. I agree. Amazing. Thanks so much, Sandra. People want to follow you, support you. What should they do?
Yes, that's a good point. I'm on social media.
Yeah.
So I have on Facebook and Instagram, it's the same. It's the same account. It's at Sandra Marichal official. The official account, the page and the Instagram account.
Why, is there someone trying to moonlight as you?
Say again?
Is there someone trying to pretend to be you that's not official?
No,
this is not okay, but that also means you're incredibly important if someone's trying to be you.
Just follow the official one,
okay.
Just in case.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, I try to, for those who are interested, I'm gonna at some point finish my halfway around the world sailing, and then most importantly, my next expedition to Antarctica. So it's all captured there. I would say it's quite entertaining because all of the questions around, the female question around preparing for an adventure, I share everything with everybody. So you might be surprised by the sort of things that I share on social media, because I think we should democratize and remove all the taboos around it. So I encourage you to do that. And if there's anybody who's interested to support the project, and I'm thinking any brands that, are focusing on empowering women, any brands that are very female oriented, who wants to support this project, got products for me to test while I'm in Antarctica, wants to sponsor us and become a partner, more than happy to work with you guys, or ladies, should I say, to try and test some of those and raise a bit more awareness around women and adventuring outdoor.
Amazing. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I've loved chatting to you, Sandra. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Everything. No, I love talking with you. It's great.
Especially after a long day at work, you instantly just hopped on a Zoom. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yes, I need to get back to my meetings now.
Oh no. Thanks, Sandra. I can't wait to hear all about Antarctica and sailing around the next half around the world. Thanks so much.
Thank you.